In the silent echoes of the ancient world, long before history was written with ink upon scrolls, there lived stories carved into the hearts of men. Stories of courage, defiance, and impossible trials. Stories of heroes who stood between mortals and monsters, between despair and hope. Tonight, traveler, you step into that realm. Welcome to the chronicles of Greek mythology, where gods ruled from the heights of Olympus, and mortals etched their names into eternity through deeds that defied death itself. But first, a question for you, listener across time. Where are you from? And what hour of the day do you find yourself in now? Imagine this, whether you are listening at dawn, when the world awakens, or deep in the night, when shadows creep across your room, you are here, standing shoulder to shoulder with legends. For in the theater of myth, time bends and distance disappears. You are no longer simply a spectator. You are walking the same path as Hercules, Perseus, and the champions who dared to fight destiny itself. Let us begin. The age of heroes did not arise in peace. It was born in the chaos of gods clashing with titans, in the shifting order of the cosmos, where divine will often crush mortal lives. And yet, amidst these storms, individuals emerged whose names refused to be forgotten. They were not gods, though sometimes blessed or cursed by them. They were not ordinary men, though their blood flowed red as ours. They were heroes, the bridge between mankind and divinity, men and women chosen by fate, armed with courage and scarred by suffering. No hero embodies this paradox more than Hercules, or as he is better known in the modern tongue, Hercules. The son of Zeus, king of the gods, and Alcmene, a mortal woman, Hercules was born into the world already carrying both divine strength and mortal vulnerability. His birth was not a tale of joy but of strife, for Hera, queen of the heavens and wife of Zeus, despised him from his first breath. To her, Hercules was a living reminder of her husband's infidelity, as she swore his life would be a river of torment. Even as an infant in his cradle, Hercules was tested. Hera sent serpents slithering into his chamber, their fangs dripping venom, their coils tightening around the child. Yet instead of crying, the infant reached out with impossible strength and strangled both creatures with his tiny hands. It was a sign, not just to his mother but to all who witnessed it, that this child was no ordinary mortal. Hercules grew into a man of unmatched strength, broad of shoulder and unstoppable in battle. But his might was both a gift and a curse. For though his muscles could shatter stone, they could not protect him from the designs of the gods. Hera's vengeance would stalk him all his days, twisting his destiny into one of suffering and redemption. The greatest test of his life came in the form of the 12 labors, a punishment, yet also a path to immortality. Driven to madness by Hera's wrath, Hercules committed a crime so grave that redemption seemed impossible. He slew those dearest to him. In the wake of such horror, he sought atonement, and it was decreed that he must serve King Eurystheus of Tyrants, performing tasks so impossible that failure was certain, or so it seemed. The first labor, the Nemean lion. This beast prowled the hills of Nemea, its golden hide impenetrable to any blade, its roar shaking the very air. Warriors had tried to kill it, and none had returned. Hercules set out, armed with bow, sword, and club, only to find that none could pierce its hide. When the lion pounced, jaws wide, Hercules wrestled it with his bare hands. In the clash of man and monster, he found the only weapon that could prevail his strength. He locked his arms around the beast's neck, choking the life from it until it fell limp. Then, using its own claws, he skinned its hide, wearing the impenetrable pelt upon his shoulders as both armor and symbol of victory. The people rejoiced, but King Eurystheus trembled. He had hoped the labor would destroy Hercules, yet the hero returned triumphant. From then on, Eurystheus would not even grant him audience face to face, hiding in fear of the demigod he was supposed to command. But the labors had only just begun. The second, the Lernaean Hydra, a serpent with 9 heads, one of which was immortal. When one head was cut off, 2 more would sprout in its place. The swamp of Lerna reeked of its poison, and even its breath was death. Hercules faced the beast with blade in hand, but quickly realized brute strength alone would not be enough. Each strike gave rise to more snapping jaws. Yet, with the aid of his nephew Iolaus, he discovered a strategy. Each time a head was severed, Iolaus seared the wound with fire, preventing new growth. One by one, the heads fell, until only the immortal one remained. This Hercules buried deep beneath a heavy stone, trapping it for eternity. From the Hydra's blood, he dipped his arrows, making them so deadly that even a scratch would bring death. The third labor tested not his strength, but his endurance. The capture of the Ceryneian hind, a deer sacred to Artemis, swift as the wind, with golden antlers gleaming in the sun. For a full year, Hercules pursued the animal across mountains, rivers, and forests, never giving up the chase. At last, he captured it, careful not to harm it, and carried it back. Even this act required cunning, for angering Artemis would have meant divine wrath. He returned the hind without injury, proving not just strength, but restraint. The fourth labor sent him after the Erymanthian boar, a monstrous creature that ravaged the countryside. Hercules wrestled the beast into submission, dragging it bound through the snow, his laughter echoing across the mountains as Eurystheus, terrified at the sight, hid once more in his bronze jar. The labors continued, each more impossible than the last, the cleaning of the Augean stables in a single day, which he achieved not with muscle, but with wit, diverting rivers to wash away years of filth. The slaying of the Stymphalian birds, whose bronze beaks and metallic feathers rained death from the skies, driven off with the clashing of a divine rattle given by Athena. The capture of the Cretan bull, wild and untamable, yet subdued by Hercules' sheer might. One by one, he faced beasts, kings, and tasks that blurred the line between human and divine. He journeyed to the farthest reaches of the known world, to steal the man-eating mares of Diomedes, to obtain the belt of Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons, to seize the cattle of Geryon guarded by a 2-headed hound, and to pluck the golden apples of the Hesperides, guarded by a dragon coiled around the sacred tree. And then came the final labor, the descent into Hades itself. No mortal dared walk the path of the dead and return, but Hercules descended, his club in hand, his lion's pelt upon his shoulders. He confronted Cerberus, the 3-headed guardian of the underworld, not with sword or arrow, but with his bare hands. With strength that defied death itself, he wrestled the beast into submission and dragged it into the world of the living. When he returned, scarred and weary but unbroken, even the gods had no choice but to acknowledge his triumph. Hercules was more than muscle. He was the embodiment of the human struggle against suffering. His labors were not simply punishments, but allegories of life's trials, each impossible, each demanding not just strength, but resilience, wit, and a refusal to yield. Though his life was marred by tragedy, he achieved what no other mortal had. He carved a path to immortality. In death, he was welcomed among the gods, his place on Olympus secured, his name etched forever as the greatest of heroes. Yet Hercules was not alone in the tapestry of Greek myth. Another name shines almost as brightly. Perseus, the slayer of Medusa, a man whose destiny was written before his birth. This section dives deep into Perseus and other legendary champions. Before Hercules' mighty labors were sung across the world, another name echoed through the ancient halls of legend: Perseus, a hero whose courage and cunning carved one of the most enduring tales of Greek mythology. Perseus' story begins not in triumph, but in fear. His grandfather, King Acrisius of Argos, had been warned by an oracle that his own daughter, Danae, would bear a son destined to kill him. Terrified, Acrisius locked Danae in a bronze chamber beneath the earth, thinking to escape fate itself. Yet no mortal king could defy the will of Zeus. From the heavens, the king of the gods descended in the form of golden rain, and in that shimmering flood, Perseus was conceived. When Acrisius discovered the child, his fear turned to cruelty. He dared not kill his daughter and grandson outright, for the gods might punish him, but he cast them both into a chest and set them adrift upon the endless sea. Waves roared, winds howled, but destiny carried them safely to the island of Seriphos, where they were taken in by a fisherman named Dictys. Perseus grew into a man of strength and honor, devoted to protecting his mother. Yet shadows loomed once more. The island's king, Polydex, lusted after Danae, and when Perseus stood in his way, the king devised a plot. Pretending he wished to marry another woman, Polydex demanded every man on the island bring him a wedding gift. Perseus, poor and desperate to defend his mother's honor, boldly promised to bring a gift greater than all others: the head of Medusa, the Gorgon. It was a promise born of pride, yet one that would lead him into the heart of nightmare. For Medusa was no ordinary foe. Once a maiden of beauty, she had been cursed by Athena into a monster with serpents writhing in her hair, her gaze turning any living being to stone. To face her was to face certain death. But the gods themselves took pity on Perseus, for his cause was noble. Hermes, fleet-footed messenger of the gods, gave him a sword sharp enough to slice through stone. Athena, wise and warlike, gifted him a polished bronze shield, gleaming like a mirror. From the nymphs of the north, he gained winged sandals to carry him through the skies, a of invisibility to cloak him from sight, and a pouch to hold the head of Medusa once severed. Armed with these divine gifts, Perseus set out. Across oceans and lands unknown, he journeyed to the edge of the world, where the Gorgons dwelled in a cavern of shadows. Two sisters, immortal and monstrous, guarded their sibling, while Medusa herself slumbered. Perseus crept close, his sandals whispering over the air, his shield reflecting her form. Step by step, he approached, never meeting her eyes, watching only her reflection. With a single stroke, guided by courage and the will of the gods, his blade flashed, and Medusa's head fell. From her blood sprang the winged horse Pegasus, soaring into the skies, and the warrior Chrysaor, destined for his own path. With the Gorgons shrieking in fury, Perseus donned the cap of invisibility, vanishing from their grasp. He carried Medusa's head with care, knowing its gaze still turned flesh to stone, and began his journey home. Yet destiny is never simple. On his return, he found himself upon the shores of Ethiopia, where a tragedy unfolded. Queen Cassiopeia, in her arrogance, had boasted that her beauty surpassed that of the Nereids, the sea nymphs. Offended, Poseidon, god of the sea, sent a monster to ravage the coast. In desperation, the king, Cepheus, chained his daughter, the maiden Andromeda, to the rocks as a sacrifice. When Perseus beheld her, bound and awaiting death, he was struck not only by her beauty, but by her innocence. As the sea monster rose from the waves, jaws wide to devour her, Perseus descended from the sky. With Medusa's head raised high, he turned the beast to stone, its massive body crashing lifeless into the sea. Andromeda was freed, and Perseus claimed her as his bride, uniting love with heroism. But Perseus' journey was not yet finished. When he returned to Seriphos, he found his mother still tormented by Polydex. The king had grown arrogant, believing Perseus would never return. Yet the hero strode into the hall, raising the head of Medusa before the tyrant and his court. In an instant, stone filled the chamber, freezing the wicked where they stood, their cruelty preserved forever. At last, Danae was safe, Perseus victorious. Yet fate had one final thread to weave. Years later, during athletic games in Thessaly, Perseus competed in the discus throw. With a mighty cast, the discus veered from its path and struck an old man watching in the crowd. The man fell lifeless, and as silence fell over the arena, the truth became clear. The man was Acrisius, Perseus' grandfather. The prophecy had been fulfilled, not by malice, but by the inexorable hand of destiny. Thus, Perseus' story came full circle, born from prophecy, shaped by courage, and ended by fate. He lived the remainder of his life as a king, father, and founder of dynasties. His name carried across generations as the slayer of monsters and savior of the innocent. But he was not the only champion whose legend burned bright in the Greek imagination. The Age of Heroes was rich with figures whose deeds inspired both awe and fear. Consider Theseus, Prince of Athens, whose courage brought an end to one of the most terrifying rituals of his age. In those years, the mighty island of Crete ruled over Athens, demanding tribute in the form of young men and women sent into the labyrinth of King Minos. There, they were devoured by the Minotaur, a half-man, half-bull creature born of monstrous origins. The labyrinth itself was a prison of twisting halls and endless turns, built by the cunning craftsman Daedalus, designed so that none who entered could ever escape. Theseus, determined to free his people from this cruel fate, volunteered to be among the sacrificial victims. With a heart of steel and the courage of youth, he sailed to Crete. There, he gained the aid of Princess Ariadne, daughter of King Minos, who fell in love with him. She gave him a ball of thread, instructing him to tie one end at the labyrinth's entrance and unwind it as he ventured deeper, so he might find his way back. Armed only with his sword and his wits, Theseus entered the darkness. The roars of the Minotaur echoed through the stone halls, a sound of hunger and rage. When the beast appeared, towering and savage, Theseus did not falter. He fought with ferocity, driving his blade into the creature's heart. The Minotaur collapsed. Its reign of terror ended, and with Ariadne's thread, Theseus found his way back to the world of light. His return to Athens, however, was marred by sorrow. On the voyage home, he forgot to change the sails of his ship from black to white, as he had promised his father, King Aegeus. Seeing the black sails, Aegeus believed his son dead and cast himself into the sea, which from that day bore his name, the Aegean. Theseus became king, his name forever tied to both triumph and tragedy, for such is the nature of Greek heroes. Another hero's tale intertwined with both gods and men is that of Jason, leader of the Argonauts. His quest was not for glory in battle, but for the Golden Fleece, a symbol of kingship and divine favor. Jason assembled a company of the greatest warriors of his time: Hercules, Orpheus, Atalanta, Castor and Pollux, and many more aboard the ship Argo. Together, they braved seas haunted by monsters, islands cursed by gods, and challenges that tested not just strength, but unity. The most perilous part of their journey was not the clashing rocks, the harpies, or the dragon that guarded the fleece, but the betrayal of love. For Jason won the fleece with the aid of Medea, a sorceress who fell deeply in love with him. She used her magic to lull the dragon into slumber, guiding Jason to victory. Yet their love turned bitter, ending in betrayal, vengeance, and blood. Jason's story is one not just of adventure, but of the darker shadows of ambition and broken oaths. So many heroes walked the earth in those days that their tales fill countless scrolls. Atalanta, swift-footed huntress, who bested men in races and joined the hunt for the Caledonian boar. Bellerophon, who mounted Pegasus and slew the fire-breathing chimera. Each champion bore their own gifts, their own burdens, and their own tragedies. But among them all, Hercules and Perseus stood as pillars of might and destiny. Their stories taught that even the strongest must suffer, that even the cleverest cannot escape fate, and that true heroism is not found in avoiding hardship, but in facing it head-on. The Age of Heroes was not simply a time of myth, but a reflection of humanity itself. For though monsters may not walk our world as they did in the stories, we still face our own trials, our own labyrinths, our own hydras. And like those heroes of old, we must summon courage, resilience, and hope. This will cover more legendary heroes, wrap up the narrative. Even after the great feats of Hercules, Perseus, and Theseus, the world of Greek heroes remained a tapestry of wonder, courage, and cautionary tales. Among them, few names shine as brightly as Bellerophon, the hero who tamed the winged horse Pegasus and faced the fire-breathing Chimera. Bellerophon's story begins with exile and hardship, for he was falsely accused by a king and sent on a perilous journey, armed with a sealed letter that carried instructions for his death. Yet the gods, ever watchful, guided him. Upon reaching the court of King Iobates, Bellerophon was given impossible tasks: to slay the Chimera, a monstrous creature with the body of a lion, the head of a goat rising from its back, and a serpent for a tail, capable of breathing fire. Armed with a spear and the aid of Pegasus, Bellerophon soared into the sky. From above, he struck the Chimera with precise blows, driving a lead-tipped spear into its flaming throat, melting the monster from within. The kingdom witnessed a hero's triumph, a mortal empowered by courage and divine favor. Yet pride can be as perilous as any monster. In time, Bellerophon attempted to ascend to Olympus itself, seeking to sit among the gods. Zeus, angered by such hubris, cast him down, leaving him to wander the earth blind and broken. Even the greatest heroes were not immune to the consequences of ambition unchecked. Among heroes, Atalanta stands as a rare emblem of independence and skill, defying the norms of her time. Abandoned at birth and raised by bears, she grew swift of foot and strong of spirit. She joined the hunt for the Caledonian boar, a creature of terrifying strength that had ravaged the lands and distinguished herself above all men, striking the beast with precision and bravery. In love and competition, she demanded that suitors defeat her in a race, offering marriage only to those who could match her speed. Through wit and cunning, she was eventually bested, but not by brute force, by cleverness. Her tale reminds us that heroism comes in many forms, and strength alone does not always prevail. Yet no recounting of Greek heroes would be complete without a nod to the Argonauts, a fellowship of extraordinary individuals united in the quest for the Golden Fleece. Jason, their leader, may have sought glory, but each Argonaut faced their own trials. Orpheus, whose music could charm even the rocks and rivers, confronted despair in the underworld. Castor and Pollux, the divine twins, demonstrated loyalty and sacrifice. Together, they endured shipwrecks, storms, monstrous adversaries, and the treacherous schemes of gods, proving that heroism was often a collective endeavor, not merely the triumph of a single figure. It is in these stories, from Hercules' labors to Perseus' cunning, from Theseus' labyrinth to Bellerophon's flight, that we glimpse the enduring truth of Greek mythology. These heroes were mirrors of human aspiration and fear, of strength and vulnerability, of triumph and tragedy. Their tales were not written to entertain alone. They were lessons, warnings and inspirations, echoing through centuries to shape the human understanding of courage, morality, and destiny. Imagine for a moment standing on the edge of Mount Olympus, the wind tugging at your hair, the clouds swirling beneath your feet. Look down upon the earth below, where men and women struggle, love, fight, and endure. Know that the heroes of old were not immortal simply because they wielded weapons or possessed divine blood. They were immortal because their stories transcended time, because their deeds stirred the hearts of those who heard them, and because they dared to confront what others would flee. As you sit and listen, remember that the age of heroes is not entirely behind us. We too face our own monsters, whether they be fear, loss, injustice, or the unknown. And like Hercules facing the Hydra, Perseus confronting Medusa, or Theseus in the labyrinth, we can draw upon courage, intelligence, and resilience to meet them. The myths endure not merely as entertainment, but as guides for life itself. So, traveler, as this chapter draws to a close, take a moment to honor the champions of old. Remember Hercules, who bore suffering with strength; Perseus, who faced prophecy and monsters with cleverness; Theseus, who who brought freedom to his people at great personal cost. Bellerophon, whose ambition soared higher than the sky. And Atalanta, whose skill and independence challenged convention. They lived, fought, and endured, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire. And now, before you return to the modern world, consider this. The age of heroes is never truly gone. In every act of bravery, in every moment of sacrifice, in every choice to do what is right despite fear, the spirit of these legendary champions lives on. If you felt the thrill of their adventures, the tension of their battles, and the weight of their destinies, then you are part of the same story. You too walk in the footsteps of heroes. Thank you for joining this journey through the epic tales of Greek heroes. If Hercules' strength moved you, if Perseus' cunning inspired you, if Theseus' bravery challenged you, then carry a piece of their legacy forward in your own life. And of course, fellow traveler, before you step back from this mythic realm, I have a small request. Like this video if these heroes stirred your spirit. Share it with friends who crave adventure and legend, and subscribe to continue walking alongside the champions of Greek mythology. Hit that notification bell, for many more stories of gods, monsters, and mortals await, each more thrilling than the last. From the edge of Olympus to the farthest reaches of the ancient world, the tales of heroes continue to echo. And as you return to your day, remember, heroes are not just in myth. They are in every heart that dares to face the impossible. Until next time, wherever you are, whatever hour you find yourself in, know that the legends of Greece are never far, and neither are you from the courage within. The world is vast, the stories eternal, and the heroes forever remembered.